This is our learning. You're going to see it. Let's start Yud Aleph. That's 11. Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph, 11a. So we're holding Tanur Rabbanan. Tanur Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. We had a discussion before about the mezuzah. That's why this is continuing. The question was, the previous Gemara was discussing if the Lishkas Parhedrin needed a mezuzah, as well as if the Sukkah needs a mezuzah. It was machlokes. Okay, now, as a continuation of that, the Gemara says there's a brisa that says like this: Bisharecha, Savtam al mezuzahs Pesecha Visharecha. You write them on the mezuzahs of your house and your gates. What does the gates mean? Echad Shari Batim, whether it's the gates of a house. It probably means like outer gates or something. Echad Shari Chatzeris, whether it's the gates of the courtyard. Echad Shari Medinas, whether the gates of the country. It probably doesn't mean country, as you'll see. Echad Shari Ayaris, whether it's the gates of the city. Medinas has to be like some sort of community. Echad Shari Ayaris, whether the gates of the city. Unless Rashi, the way Rashi puts it, is that sometimes there are mountains or cities that are around the country, and there would be a gate around that. So it'd be like an outer. I don't know what Rashi's saying. Kegoin Eretz Hagar. What does that mean? What is Eretz Hagar? I was quoting something like that. He's referencing something.
I remember seeing a diagram, we have the city, and then it turned distance outside of the city.
Houses.
Yeah, houses up this distance.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been a gate though. There was something, Iber bin Yaris, to extend the city a little bit. Okay, whatever the case is, we're discussing the word Medina. You have an obligation to keep the command. Mishum Shenamar, as it says, that means that city gates require a mezuzah. There's a mezuzah on the gates of Yerushalayim, correct? Yeah. There's a mezuzah there. Amalei Abayla Rav Safra. So Abaya says to Rav Safra, Hani abuli de mechuzah, my time alay abdulu rabbanan mezuzah. The gates of mechuzah, how come the rabbis didn't make a mezuzah there? Mechuzah was a Jewish city, mainly Jewish city. Rava was the Rav of Mechuzah. And Abaya is asking Rav Safra, where are the mezuzahs? Amarlei hanu chizuk la'akra dekuviya davidi. Those aren't really gates. Those are really supports for the tower that's above it. What do they call the tower above it? Some like a citadel or something that was above the gates. Amalei va'akra dekuvi gufati by mezuzah. What are those towers themselves should require mezuzah, because how do you get into those towers? You walk into the gate and there's a little staircase that takes you up to those like fortress, that tower. The Ispei Dira L'Shemer Beis Asurim, because over there's the place where the guard lives, the guard for the prison guard. He lives up there in that tower. Tanya was taught in a brisa. There was a possibility that there was a shul that the shamash lived in the shul. Upstairs in the shul, there was a room for the shamash to live. Now, if someone lived in there, so even though it was a shul, but it's chayav mezuzah because someone was living there. So here also, a bridge tender. Oh, the person that opens the bridge. Yeah, that's probably a good job for someone that wants to learn. No, it's over there. He learns. He opens the bridge when he hears the beep from the boat. Oh, yeah. I've been sitting on, yeah, like in the Friedrich's memoirs, and these people that would sit up and they would just sit and learn. Okay, so we're asking over here that why is there no mezuzah on the gates of mechuzah? We said, well, the gates aren't really gates of the city. It's just the whole arch, or the whole support there was just to hold what was above it. I said, well, what's above it is a house, because the guard lives above that gate. So why isn't there a mezuzah on that gate just because of the house that's above it? Elamar Abaya says there has to be a different pshat over here. Can't be because it's really exempt from mezuzah. Mishum sakana. It's because of a danger. What is the danger? Rashi says the danger is the king might think that the Jews are doing witchcraft. Yeah, you didn't want to be caught doing witchcraft. You didn't get a good trial. So that's why the gates of Mechuz, even though the city was majority Jewish, but nevertheless they didn't put it up because the king in charge of the city that owned the city would have suspected them. What scrolls are you putting up on my gates? What are you writing over there? It must be something. This was in Babylonia. Who was the king? Artaban? I don't know. Okay. So the Tanya stood in a brisa. Mezuzas yachid nivdekes pamayim b'shvua b'sharam pamayim b'yovel. How often does a mezuzah need to be checked? So it depends. If it's a private individual, so then twice in 7 years. Right. Twice in 7 years. If it's a community mezuzah, then it's twice in 50 years. Why? Why is that? Rashi says that we don't want to bother the people too much because the things that are for the community to do, we try to make it lighter. Otherwise, people will say, I'm not going to do it, someone else will do it. If it becomes too difficult, they'll just have other people do it. No one will take it up like, oh, this is something we're supposed to do. So therefore, they say that it's just, don't worry about it. It's just twice in 50 years. Don't worry, you'll just have to do it once. You won't have to do it again. Or whatever. We'll get someone else to do it in 50 years. Right. So the people would like to do less. Yeah, they want a board without any responsibility. Right. So that's they do it less. Okay. So what's the point of this? According to Rashi, we didn't get to the point yet. According to the other commentaries here, according to, where did I see this? In Tesis Yishanim or Rabbeinu Chananel? Rabbeinu Chananel, Tesis Yishanim. He says the reason is, as we're going to see, the reason why we don't check it so often is because there's a problem with checking it often. Not because people don't want the responsibility. The reason is, as it's going to say, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Maisa ba'artaban. There's a story with this fellow by the name of Artaban. It's Artaban too. Artaban, it's two gersais here. One says Artaban Echad. Rashi doesn't have that gersa. Rashi says it's someone's name. Artaban could also be, what does it mean? Do they have over there a translation in Steinzel? Has to be a note on the side in under the language. If it says echad, it's an interesting comment from the Yavitz on the side that Rashi says an examiner. Okay, good. Rashi says Artaban is the name of a person, and and some say that it's a type of job. But the Yavitz comments on it, Shema etzem le'yisafiv le'yimana. You can't say Artaban echad, one Johnny. You can't say the story with Johnny that right. You don't say one Jack. You can say there's a story with one examiner that. So that's the Yavit just has a funny language to that, and you see that on the side. Shem etzem le'yisafiv le'yimana. You can't count a personal name. Okay, so there's a story with this fellow Artaban. He was examining the mezuzahs in the marketplace that was in the higher marketplace in Sipari. The soldier found him. He gave him a fine, $1,000 fine. So what are we seeing? That don't check the public mezuzahs too often. That's Taisus Yishanim Pshat, because you could get a fine. And we're also seeing that sometimes things are dangerous, right? And that's Abaya's explanation why there's no mezuzahs on the gates of Mechuzah. In 1 second, he was doing a mitzvah. It says that someone that's doing a mitzvah doesn't get harmed, and he got a $1,000 fine. That doesn't sound so good. So there's no, you can't, if there's something is dangerous, you can't just blame it on, oh, I was doing a mitzvah. If it's possible or if it's probable that this is a dangerous activity, so blaming it on a mitzvah isn't going to be a protection. If it's not a dangerous activity, then I'm sorry, relying on the mitzvah that it's going to be a protection. No, you can't do that. Speeding to get to Shul on time. For things that aren't probable or okay. The Ksiv, we have a pasuk that supports this. That if it's shricha zeka, you have to be very careful. Even though it's a mitzvah, it says like this. Vayemer Shmuel says to Hashem, Eich elech. He says, Hashem tells Shmuel he should go and anoint David. The problem is that when he's going to anoint David, there's already a king that exists, Shaul HaMelech. He's not going to be so fond of a new king being appointed. He says, how can I go? V'shama Shaul Vargeni is going to kill me. Vayemer Hashem, Eglas Bakar Tikach Biyadech. V'amartlas Bech Hashem Basi, take an animal and disguise what you're doing. Say that you're just going to offer a sacrifice, and while you're there, you'll pour some oil on David's head, and you'll tell him that he's going to be the next king. Don't tell anyone until I get out of here. Okay. So what we're seeing is that if it's dangerous, even if it's a direct command from Hashem, you still have to be careful. You follow. Even if it's a direct command, Hashem's it's not just like a general mitzvah. Hashem's telling him directly what to do. But Shmuel was concerned that this could be something dangerous. So why? No, it's shriach hazeka. It's you're walking into the lion's den. Okay. Tani Rav Kana Kamed Rav Yehuda. Thank you. Rav Kana taught in front of Rav Yehuda. Rav Kana was a student of Rav, and Rav Yehuda is a student of Rav. Okay, these are second generation Amirayim and Bava. They say so. Rav Kana is saying a brisa in front of Rav Yehuda. It says Beis HaTeven, a storage house of straw. Beis HaBakar, a place where the animals go. Beis HaEitzim, a storage house for wood. Beis HaEitzers, other storage houses. Peturim and mezuzah, they're exempt from mezuzah. It seems that it's only the places where you live are chayav in mezuzah, but storage houses are a shed. That's what it seems like, a shed, where you keep the things for Pesach. That's exempt from mezuzah. However, it says Not so simple. It's not so simple. What's the reason why this is exempt from mezuzah? It says mipnei shanashim noisus behem, because the women use it. It's not just because it's a shed. It's a special exemption. Normally a shed would be chayav, but here the women use it. My noisus, what does it mean they use it? It says reichtzis. They bathe there. It's been an outdoor hot tub. What's the reason for that? Why is that exempt? So Rashi says because it's a makan ganai. They stand there naked. It's not honor for heaven that there should be a mezuzah in this place where they're bathing. It's like a mikveh. Okay. So Amalei Rav Yehuda. This is a statement by Rav Kana, and the explanation came from Rav Kana. You see, all it said was that the women use it, but it said it's a storage area, and we said it's exempt from mezuzah. So Rav Yehuda says, "Taima dereichtzis." What's the reason why it's exempt? Is because they're doing this activity there, which is not appropriate to have a mezuzah. They're bathing, hastama. But just the fact that it's a shed, it's a storage, chayavin, then it would be chayav. That's what it seems. Now, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't accept this. This is a strict opinion of Rav Kahana. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is Vatanya, but we have another brisa that says, refes bakar patamina mezuzah, a stable for the animals, a pen is exempt from mezuzah. And it's nothing, it doesn't have to do with women or inappropriate things. It's exempt. Why? It's just storage. Elamai knows Rabbi, there's a different pshat. What does it mean that they use it? Miskashtes. They put on their perfume there. Not because it's a regular usage. It's a powder room. And even though it's a powder room, but nevertheless, and they're not in the powder room, they're not undressed. They just doing their hair and putting on their makeup. That's not a problem. So v'hachik tani, and Rabbi Yehuda says there's a different pshat here. Even though it's used by the women as a powder room, but nevertheless it's exempt. So in other words, we have two opinions here about a storage area if it's chayiv and mezuzah. Rav Kana says a storage area is chayiv and mezuzah. We have cases where they're exempt. Oh, that's because the women are bathing there, so that's why it's considered a bathhouse. Rav Yehuda says storage areas are chayiv and mezuzah. And what are we talking about that the women are using it? What we meant to say is that even though the women use it, it's still, no, I'm sorry, Rav Yehuda says it's a storage area is exempt from mezuzah. So why does it say the women are using it? It sounds like it's because the women are. He says no, even though the women are using it, and not because for immodest, not for when they're undressed. It's a regular powder room, and nevertheless they're exempt. So Rav Kana says chayiv, and Rav Yehuda says pater regarding a storage area. Amalei Rav Kana says if the women are using it, why are you saying that it's pater? It's a powder room. But we have another brisa that says, refes bakar p'turim min mezuzah, that a stable or a pen, an animal pen, is exempt from mezuzah. But it's exactly the opposite. A powder room is chayiv in a mezuzah. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? How are you going to answer this? I just gave you a brisa that says clearly that you're not correct. It says that a powder room is chayiv and mezuzah. You said that it's pater. Rav Kana has a brisa. So Rav Kana says, what are you going to tell me? Miskashtis tanayi. You're going to tell me that a powder room is a machlekes. So ledivina mistama tanayi. If that's the case, that a powder room is a machlekes. So Rav Yehuda, you brought a brisa that's going to tell me that what was his brisa? Refes bakar p'turim min mezuzah, that says that a storage area is exempt. So I'll tell you also that that's a machlekes. Just like you want to tell me that a powder room is a machlekes, a storage area is also machlekes. And don't prove me wrong by quoting to me a brisa, because I can always answer you that brisa is the other opinion. He says he's following the other brisa. No, he has a brisa that says refes had beis hateven, beis habaka, beis eitzim, beis eitz p'turis min hamezuzah mipnei she'anashim noisus them, because the women use it. The question is, how do you translate because the women use it? So Rabbi Yehuda says you have to translate it that even though the women use it, it's still exempt, and it's talking about a powder room. That was Rabbi Yehuda's pshat. Rav Kana says that's not the pshat. The pshat is that the reason why it's exempt is because the women use it as a bath area. Aha. If that's the case, then really a storage area is chayiv. Taisvis had a question over here. He says, what was the support for Rabbi Yehuda to say that a storage area is exempt from mezuzah? Because he has a brisa that says refes bakar is exempt. Now, what was the reason why the beis habakar was exempt, according to Rabbi Yehuda, or according to Rav Kana? According to Rav Kana, the beis habakar was exempt because the women bathe there, and you can't have a mezuzah in a place where they're standing naked. So, Taisus asks, so why don't you just say it's talking about the place where they're not dressed? What's the kasha? What's the kasha? What's Rabbi Yehuda's kasha on Rav Kana's explanation from a brisa that says that a refes bakar is exempt from mezuzah? Obviously, it has to do with storage. Maybe not. Maybe it has to do with that the women were using it. So Taisva says that there's a difference between a refes bakar and a beis habakar. The beis habakar doesn't mean that the animals live there. Beis habakar, it's an area that the animals can go. It's probably some sort of outdoor area where the animals can go. The refes bakar is where you put them overnight, and he says that's a disgusting area. The women would never bathe in it. They'd be stepping in whatever, in manure. That wouldn't be a place where they would bathe. The outdoor area that was considered the beis habakar, that was an area where the animals would just go and hang out during the day, but it doesn't mean that that's where they coffee, right? Okay. So it goes like this. Now we're going to have two explanations. We're going to have that there's a machlekes about everything. There's a machlekes about the storage area, and there's a machlekes about how to explain the brisa. It says, the Tanya, we start on the brisa like this. Beisecha. It says, your house. Beisecha hamyuchad lach. It has to be your specific house, your designated house. Prat, that excludes beis hateven, beis habakar, beis eitzim, beis haitzros shepter min hamezuzah. All of those storage areas of straw, cattle, wood, or other types of storage, those are exempt from mezuzah. Yesh mechayven, and some say that yechayiv. So apparently, there's a machlekes over here about storage. I'm not sure. No, but bedroom doors. I don't know if that's correct. I think beisecha meant rooms. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's correct. Be'emes amru, definitely the Jewish American understanding was that the front door had a mezuzah, and inside was a. I don't know if that's halachic. Right. So, be'emes amru, in truth, they said when be'emes amru means that this is the halacha. Beis hakisei, beis haborsaki, beis hamerchatz, beis hatfila, v'shanashim noishos ben p'turim min hamezuzah. A bathroom. A borsaki is a tannery. That's where they work the leather. They take hide, the skin of the animal, and they turn it into leather. It's a very smelly a workshop, like a carpenter shop.
Sounds like it would be chayiv in mezuzah. Well, based on merchatz, that's the bathhouse. So based on tefillah, what's the difference? That's the Gemara's house is going to mention. In an area where the women use, what's the difference between that and a base of tefillah or base of merchatz? Turn min mezuzah. That's a good question. I think that the base of merchatz is probably referring to a regular area where men would be. Yeah. Base of tefillah could be men and women. Base of merchatz could be women as well. It sounds like there's another sort of area here. Right. No, I think the answer was that this was an area. Shmuel is asking, why are we mentioning that the women would bathe there? What about men? I think that the men would bathe in other areas, in more open areas. The women would do it more privately. This was an area that was out in the back, behind everything, and that's where they would bathe. Right. That's where women would go because the people weren't there. Men would jump right into the stream or whatever. They didn't have the same concerns that the women had. So Rav Kahana metaretz l'tamei, Rav Yehuda metaretz l'tamei. We have to learn this brisa in two ways. Remember, there's a machlekes between Rav Kahana and Rav Yehuda. If a storage area naturally is chayav the mezuzah, Rav Kahana said yes, and Rav Yehuda said no. So now we have to read this brisa where we mentioned the storage area is exempt. I'm sorry, we mentioned a storage area is a machlekes. It goes like this. Rav Kahana metaretz l'tamei, Rav Yehuda metaretz l'tamei. Each one is going to pull the whole story into their opinion. Rav Kahana metaretz l'tamei. Rav Kahana explains it like this: Beisecha, when it says your house, he's going to redo the brisa now. Beisecha, your house, bayasam yuchadla, only your house, specifically your house. Prat lebeisa tevan lebeisa bakal lebeisa etzem lebeisa etzem shepters min mezuzah b'stam. The first opinion says that naturally these storage areas are exempt, but there are those people that say that it's chayav even naturally, without anything else going on. A shed, some sort of storage area, is a machlekes according to Rav Kahana if it's chayav b'mezuzah. And then they said that basic kisi, basic works, basic merchos, basic tefillah, never shanashim noises bem. What does it mean noises? What does it mean that they use it? Reichtais, that's b'turim in a mezuzah. It's only because it has something that's not respectful to the mezuzah. That's why it's exempt from mezuzah. The Gemara says if that's the pshati hachi, I know merchat. So what's the noises? They're using it, they're bathing, and then you tell me a bathhouse. It's the same thing. Well, ashmin and merchatz to rabim, ashmin and merchatz to yachid. There's two types of merchat. There's your private merchatz, and then there's the public merchatz. The private merchatz was this area that the women would use, and then there's the merchatz, the city bathhouse. I could have thought that maybe why does the merchatz of the public not require mezuzah because of all the moisture there, the humidity, and that would exempt you from the mezuzah. Maybe it would destroy it, maybe it wasn't respectful. But I could have thought that maybe a regular merchatz is chayav in the mezuzah, a regular bathhouse. So we say kamash malan that it's exempt because the women are standing there undressed, so it's not appropriate for there to be a mezuzah. That's Rav Kahana's explanation for the brisa. What he's trying to do is he's trying to come out with an opinion that says that some say that a storage area is chayav in mezuzah. Rav Yehuda metaretz l'tamei, and some say a storage area is exempt. Some say it's chayav, and some say it's exempt. Rav Yehuda metaretz l'tamei. Rav Yehuda says it differently. Hachik tani. Beisecha means bayasam yuchad lach. Beisecha means your designated house. Prat lebeisa temen lebeisa bakal lebeisa eitzim beisa eitzim shepturas permanent mezuzah. Afila miskashtes. It's exempt even if the women are using it as a powder room. And some people say that it's chayiv in a mezuzah if it's a powder room, which Rabbi Yehuda walks out with now is that no one holds that a storage area is chayiv in mezuzah. Why is this chayiv in mezuzah? Only because the women are using it. Aval stam, a regular storage area, divrei kol pater, everyone holds that is pater. Bemes amru. It's going to come out probably at the halacha. I don't know the halacha, but probably it's going to come out that if it comes out of machlekes in the paiskim, then we would put up a mezuzah without a bracha. That would be like an afkamina that would come out from such a thing. If I'm not mistaken, the Rambam holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and other paiskim hold like Rav Kana. Rav Kana said chayiv. Storage area is chayiv in mezuzah. The exemption was that the women were using it, but other than that, it's always higher. Your shed is, according to Rav Kana, requires mezuzah. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that your shed does not require mezuzah. Even if the women use it as a powder room, it's still exempt. So, in truth they said, this is Rabbi Yehuda continuing, base of kisi, base of explaining the brisa, base of kisi, base of burski, base of merchus, base of tefillah, afkish, and nashim miskasis, ben p'termin ha-mezuzah, mishum denaf pirsuim. It doesn't require mezuzah, even though it's being used as a powder room. Well, because of what else it does. Over there, it has too much moisture. Why is he adding that in? Because according to Rav Kahana, the way Rav Kahana used this brisa was he was saying was a merchatz the yachid, that it didn't have to do with the moisture. Only the public one has to do it. But Rabbi Yehuda gets out the merchatz the yachid. The only exemption here is a merchatz the rabbin, is a public merchat. Why is that exempt and not a merchatz the yachid? That has to do with the moisture, with the humidity. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda stama divrei kol pater. According to Rabbi Yehuda, just the regular storage area naturally is exempt. Is that so? But Tanya, we have a brisa. Bisharecha in your gates. The first of these brises that we quoted before were bisecha. Now it's a visharecha in your gates. Echad shari batim, echad shari chatzesh, echad shari medinas, echad shari yoris. So far we've heard that before. Gates are city gates. All of that are chayv mezuzah. Berefes. That means a stable area, a pen. Lulen, umatbein, it's a place where they keep straw. Lulen is a chicken coop. Oitzis yayin, oitzis shemen, the storage area for oil and for wine. Chayavim b'mezuzah, are chayav. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there was no such opinion. The only opinion that said chayav b'mezuzah was the powder room opinion. According to Rabbi Yehuda, and here we have a brisa that says clearly that a storage area is chayav. Yochel shani marba ach beishar achsadra merpeses could have thought that maybe the small door that enters into a courtyard, or beishar achsadra, maybe it enters into the portico. There's different two ways of reading this. Merpeses, or a porch, maybe that requires a mezuzah. It's like a hallway porch, like an outdoor porch. The motels in Miami. Talmud Laimar bias. It says a house. Ma bias michladira. Has to be for living. This is not for living. These are like public area. Yeah, I don't understand why. That could be a base shar. Well, it's where you keep your car. It's where you keep your horsepower. Right. So. Yeah, I don't understand why there would be a clear exemption here for a merpeset, because people walk there to get to their houses, to get to their attics. He's calling a merpeset as a walkway where people get a porch, a balcony where people get to their entrances. Why is that different than a chutzner where people, because a chutzner people use. They did things in the chutzner. But why is that different than a city? City gates also were required. I'm not sure. Okay. Whatever the case is, the Gemara asks, Yachal Shani Marbach, basic Tisi, basic Bursky, basic Mechlis, basic Tvila. Maybe I should also include the bathroom, a tannery, and a bathhouse, and a mikveh, Tamalim bias, a house. Ma bias asilikavad, afkal asilikavad. It has to be honorable activities. If it's dishonorable activities, non-honorable activities, so then it's exempt. Yatzurei l'shenesim l'kavad, these are not meant for honor. Yachal shani marba harabayas v'alishkus v'azaris. Maybe I should include that the harabayas is chayav in mezuzah, the chambers in the Beis Hamikdash are chayav, the azaris chayav mezuzah. Talmud Leimer bayas says a house. Ma bayas shulchal avkol shulchal yatzurei l'shen kodesh. Excludes these are holy. A house is mundane. These are holy, they're exempt. That's the case, that explains everything before. But that's not the reason why we're quoting this brisa. The reason why we're quoting this brisa is because the beginning of it said that a refes bakar and lulin and oitzers are chayev in a mezuzah. And even if you're going to tell me, well, that's a different opinion, but Rabbi Yehuda told us that there was no such opinion. The Gemara says tiyufta. It's a strong question, Rabbi Yehuda. See, Rabbi Nachananel says, "V'kaimel and Rav Kana." Yeah. So he clearly paskins like Rav Kana. I think the other place can also paskin, except for the Rambam. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. It exempts. The Rambam has more lenient opinions in this in general. If there's no door there, he exempts it from a mezuzah. It has to have actually a door, not just a doorway. And also the storage areas he exempts. And we say then it's chayav. Okay, Tani Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Kamei de Rava. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda taught in front of Rava. He says, Shisha Shar and Peturim min mezuzah. There's six gates that are exempt from mezuzah. Let's count it. Beis HaTeven is a straw storage. Beis HaBakar is cattle area. Beis HaEitzim is the wood. Beis HaEitzim is other storages. B'shar HaMadai, this is some sort of dome, an archway. B'shar She'ena Makaira, or a door that doesn't have a roof on top. It's just a door posts. I guess there's no lintel. B'shar She'ena Gavaya, Yud, we're up to 7. Or a doorway that's not 10 high. Amalei, so Rava tells him back to Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, B'tachta b'shisha v'salkus b'shiva. You started with 6, but you gave me 7, right? It's like there's 3 types of people: those that know how to count and those that don't. So how does this work? How do you start with 6 and give it 7? So. Amalei Shar Madei Tanayi. Yeah, I didn't mean that one. That one is actually machlek because that one's not 100% clear. This gate that doesn't have a roof, that's a machlekes. The Tanya was taught in a brisa kippah. Kippah sounds like a dome or an archway. Reb Meir mechayev b'mezuzah v'chachamim paitrim. Reb Meir exempts. Reb Meir is mechayev. The chachamim exempt this archway. Now, what are we talking about? We have to go through clearly. An arch is just a regular doorway that has the top is not flat. So what's going on? Do you have pictures on the side of your Gemara? Yeah, okay, so you'll get to this. So, Vishavin, everyone agrees, Shem yesh baragla asara shechayavas b'mezuzah. I was thinking of bringing blocks. Because the kids' blocks, they have the little arch. You know, that's one block that always has that piece. So, if the posts are 10 tefachim, we don't care what's on top, whether it's an archway or a flat. It's chayav b'mezuzah. Amar Abaya, the kuli alma gavaya yod bein baragla gimel lav klumi. If the doorway is 10 tefachim high, but the straight area You see, how wide does a doorway need to be considered a doorway? It needs to be 4 tefachim wide. Today we would say you have to be able to get the stroller through, but with the wheelchair, right? There has to be the code has to allow for wheelchairs to get through that. So in those days it was 4 tefachim. 4 tefachim had to be a foot. 4 tefachim would be 16 inches probably. In between, yeah, about 16 inches would be a doorway. That would be considered a doorway. It's pretty small. It's pretty small. In the old city, the houses, the doorways could be smaller, more narrow. At least the staircases and the doorways, it feels that it's more narrow. I don't know if it really is, but you walk up into those. So the doorways are more narrow. Now, I need to have at least the base of it needs to be 3 tefachim high with a distance of 4 tefachim apart. Okay, 3 tefachim high, 4. Then afterwards it could arch, it could narrow in, but that's fine as long as that narrowing in was above 3 tefachim off the ground. Okay. So Abaya says the Kuliyam Gavoya Yud ve'in baragla gimel alav klumi. That's nothing. If you don't have 3 tefachim high before it begins to arch, even if the arch takes it up to 10 tefachim tall, that's the height of a doorway, but that's nothing. Inami, another possibility is yesh baragla gimel ve'in gavoya yud v'alav klumi. If there is 3 tefachim on the bottom, but it doesn't get to 10 tefachim high, because it's too low, the doorway's too low. That's nothing. Lay nechleku, the whole machlekes between Reb Meir and the Chachamim is ela begoy v'yod v'yesh baragla gimel ve'im barach b'dalad v'yesh balachik laslim al arba. So now take a look at the picture on the side. The bottom of it, you see the bottom is like minus a little dark over there. Okay, look at the square one. Look at the one that's a square. The bottom of it is, before it begins to arch, is 3 tefachim high. Then it begins to narrow, okay? But the height of it is 10 tefachim. The only problem is that I don't have 10 tefachim straight up at a distance of 4 tefachim apart, because it starts to, as it goes up, it gets 3 tefachim, 2 tefachim, 1 tefach. So I don't have 10 tefachim high with 4 tefachim wide. I have on 3 tefachim of 4 tefachim wide, but then it starts to get 3 tefachim, 2 tefachim, 1 tefach, right? So there's a machlekes here. If I can fictitiously carve out, carve out 4 tefachim from the archway, because the outside of the archway would still contain it. Right? Because the outer side is still 4 tefachim apart. It's just that it started to arch in. So if I can imaginarily carve out that it should be 4 tefachim wide, all the way through, all the way up. So Reb Meir Savar Chaykikim Lahashlim. Reb Meir says that you fictitiously just carve it out. Rabban Savar Ein Chaykikim Lahashlim, and therefore you don't have a doorway, because you don't have 4 tefachim all the way. We had this in there. Yeah. Where are we holding? Yeah, if you live in a cave. So we could rewrite that. What the one was a lady that lived in a shoe. Could rewrite that with the mezuzah's theme. Okay. Tanarabanan, starting a bryce, Beis HaKnesses, a shul, Beis HaIsha, a woman's house, Beis HaShutfim, partners own a house. Chayaves b'mezuzah, chayav b'mezuzah. The verse is pshita. What do you? Yeah. That's obvious. What's the havamina? What were you thinking when you taught this? I mean, it's a house. I could have thought your house. v'loy beisa, not her house. Could have thought that. Beisecha v'loy batehem. It says your house, but it doesn't say you guys' house, right? It doesn't say in the plural. So Kamash Malan, it comes to tell us that no, Yechayv mezuzah anyway. The Gemara says Ve'ima hachinami, but maybe that was actually accurate. Maybe it doesn't say you guys' house, right? Y'all's house. It doesn't say that. So maybe it should be exempt. Or it doesn't say Beisa, her house. Amakra, the pasuk says, Manir b'yemechem v'nechem, the second parsha, right? So that you should lengthen your days in the days of your children. Hani b'ychai, hani loy b'ychai. Women and partners don't need to lengthen their days. So when you look at the logic, it includes them as well. This is very interesting Rabbi Kiveger here in the Goyen Hashas. Ela beisecha lamali. So why does it say beisecha if it doesn't mean beisecha? That says kidarava. Damarava derech biasecha b'chayakar inish kari diyamina akabaresha. It's coming to tell me that I put the mezuzah on the right side, because when I walk, I put my right foot first when I walk. Unless you're left footy. But you put your right foot. The way you walk is the right. You go towards the right first. So that means that the mezuzah goes on the right on your way into the house. That's where this halacha comes from. I guess we'll leave it over here.